Hey guys, welcome back to a long-awaited episode, continuing episode of YOMO, and Happy New Year to everybody. So we're picking up with episode YOMO 345. I guess Chris can tell you.
Well, first off, it's good to be back. It's been like a full 2 weeks since we last did our last YOMO, just from Christmas and travel for both of us. It's scenes of
Life
trying to
happens.
launch this pickleball club, so we've been spending our nights focused on other stuff
Mhm.
together still, but not doing so. This feels good. Feels good to finally get back into the swing of things. And then also my face is shaved. So when we start to see the new year, new Chris looks like
New
he's fun
Year,
again,
Chris.
Yeah. All right. The YOMO tonight is going to be about a book called To Hell and Back by Audie Murphy. This book was originally published in 1949, and this is about the most decorated American soldier in World War II. This dude basically he killed a lot of people. He killed or wounded 240 Germans during his time in Vietnam, and he went through Sicily, Italy, France, Germany. This is his personal memoir about his World War II, going through all these different places and all the things that he experienced and all the people that he saw die and all the people that he endured helping and getting shot himself multiple times and coming back. So this guy, Audie Murphy, is I'm not going to ruin the reflection because I'll just go ahead and start talking about the reflection. So the reflection title, this one is the Grandma Diaries. And I'll get into how Audie Murphy and To Hell and Back fits into all this stuff because this is the reflection, right? So I have two amazing grandmothers. I'm 38 when I wrote this. I'm 39 now. This is, God, was that long ago? I'm 39 and I still have two amazing grandmothers in my life, which I feel like is pretty rare for people that are, getting to my age group. Are your grandparents still with you alive? Sit by right. I can't hear you. All right.
And one of my maternal grandmother died before we were born, before even the first kid was born.
Oh,
Like very young. She died when I was probably like 17.
what about your grandfathers with you?
No, those guys are, I never see, I mean, I don't even see them in pictures.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, this I guess you kind of illustrated my point. When I was born, actually, I had 7 out of 8 of my great grandparents still alive. I think I was like 22 or maybe 23 by the time that
Mhm.
all of my great grandparents had passed away. My family lives to be old, I guess. My grandfathers, one of them passed away when I was super young, when I was like 3. He died when he was only in his mid 40s. My other grandfather, my grandfather Sears, he passed away about a decade ago. But my grandmothers are still here. They're both 85 plus years old. I think one of them might be like 88. The other one might be like 87 or something. I'm blessed to still have them in my life. It still feels like I was when I was a kid. They're still my grandmothers. They have great grandkids at this point in time. They're amazing people. And I'm blessed to still have them around, right? To open my eyes to learn more about humanity, learn more about myself, be really curious about why we do what we do and learning from other people out there in this world. I mean, just learning, right? Like it's just about being curious and exploring the world around you and humanity and the universe and all the other living creatures in this world and just learning and exploring. I've mostly done that through books through this journey, right? Talked about all the time through this whole entire Your Magical Learning podcast we've done and all the different book reflections, right? Now, I've done other things to learn, but like I would say my go-to is to pick up a new book and hope I get to learn something new from that. A few months ago, though, Amelia somehow triggered a reminder that I had 85 plus year old grandmothers that it's a treasure trove of learning, right? And
Mhm.
I was like, oh shit, like, I gotta, if I want to learn something, I got a whole lot of learning I could do from people that are right here in my life, like I don't need to go read a book or I don't need to go explore. I could go learn from them anytime I want to, and they're amazing people. I got this idea in my head, right? I think I've told you about this before. It's this company called StoryWorth. You remember when I'm talked to you about that before?
Yeah.
All right, so StoryWorth is, for anybody that doesn't know what it is, it's this web-based platform where they send you a question each week to answer, and then you journal your response, and then they capture that, and then at the end of the year, after you answer that 52 times over the course of a year, they turn it into a book for you, and they send it to you, and it's like lessons from life and career, volume one, from so and so, right? Like
Mhm.
you do this, and I was like, man, there's so much learning that we get to learn from this journey and we get to document all the stuff. We get to have these conversations. This whole journey that you and I have been on of reading this stuff, documenting these conversations, putting it out on YouTube, like this is forever for us, right? We can always come back to this. Other people can always see what we were going through, which is amazing, right? So me now selfishly in this YOMO journey, being open, realizing I got this great wealth of resources next to me of my grandmother's, and I came across the StoryWorth platform. I'm gonna go buy this for my grandmothers and have them do the StoryWorth thing, right? So I'm really excited about it. I text both my grandmas and I'm like, hey, I sent them a link to this website, and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna buy this for you. I'd really love to capture your stories from your life and be able to like help you to document them, and selfishly for me to learn from it as well, and to be able to share with the rest of the family, while we still have you guys here with us and you're still, cognitively great and everything seems to be healthy in your life. They were like, the response back I got was so not what I expected. Both of them were kind of like, meh, I don't really want to write every week for the course of a year, Chris. And I go, well, I was like, okay, all right. That was the first one sent the right response, and the next one was like, yeah, I kind of agree with with my granny. My grandma Sears was like, yeah, I kind of agree with your granny. I don't want to do this, Chris. So I was like, okay. And they go, if you really want to learn from us, like, I got an idea, Chris. Like, this is the text they sent me. They're like, I got an idea. Why don't you come over to our house, and just have a conversation with us and make that a regular routine? All right, fair enough. I guess you're right. I'm kind of making this pretty complicated to be able to have you guys share your story with me. So I started to think, well, that's not really going to work because I want to document this, right? Because I want to share this with other people. That was why I was reaching out to them. So I told them, give me like a day or two to think about this and I'll come back with a different idea. So I thought about it and I was like, you know what? Fine. I can go over to their house. I can go have conversations with them. But I was like, I'm going to do what you and I are doing. I'm going to ask them questions and then they're going to answer. And we're going to do it via a video chat. Even if we're in person, I still was recording us doing a video chat kind of thing. And I was like, I positioned that to them and they were like, I'd do that. Okay. All right. That's fair. And I was like, okay, great. Well, once a week, we'll get together. We'll do a video chat. I'll ask you a question and we'll see where it goes. So we did. And they agreed to it. I think we ended up doing about 15 episodes overall. I ran out of questions, like legitimately. I was like, I don't know what else to ask you to do it. I think we did it for about 5 months. I was going to try to do it for a whole year. I just ran out of questions. Couldn't think of anything else, but it was an awesome experience. Number one, it was an amazing experience. I learned so much about my grandmothers and I learned so much about their lives and I learned so much about what they've been through and lessons they've learned. And they were sharing back with me and just great conversations. And it was a ton of fun. And I was really glad that we did it. I recorded it all. So I have it. I don't know what I'm going to do with these things other than I just have them right now. But, someday I hope to like edit them or put them together and give them a cool video that they can share back or share with the rest of the family. So what does all this have to do with Audie Murphy and To Hell and Back, right? Well, one of the things that I learned about my Grandma Sears, I asked her one time as a completely separate question. We, devolved into like 9 other questions in this conversation on this particular day. One of them was like, okay, well, what is your favorite book you've ever read? She was like, oh, it's this book called To Hell and Back by Audie Murphy. And she was like, do you know who Audie Murphy is? And I go, no, who the fuck Audie Murphy is? I was like, what? Who the fuck is Audie Murphy? She was like, oh, well, this was a really important guy apparently back in like the 1950s or whatever. This guy was like a rock star, dude. Like, I mean, he was a movie star when he came back. He was a really big Hollywood actor. He also obviously wrote books about his own life, and I had no idea. So she's telling me about this book and about his life, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I was like, well, I kind of wanted something just commonality to connect with her. And she didn't ask me to read it, but I was like, hey, after we got done with that particular conversation with her, I went and found this book and I read it. Then the next week I came back and I was like, hey, I read your To Hell and Back book by Audie Murphy. And we ended up having a great conversation about that. It was nice to be able to connect with my grandma on something that was important to her and something that she cared about and be able to share some commonalities there and just learn more about her life. It's amazing where life will take you if you're just open and curious and let your curiosity guide the way. I mean, there's no way in hell that I ever would have read a book by Audie Murphy ever in my entire life. But this year of magical learning and just trying to explore and learn and grow and be curious led me to the Grandma Diary, led me to Audie Murphy, led me to this conversation where you and I are talking about it. Just one of those really cool universe moments. Keep following your questions and just stay curious, keep learning. And, it's incredible where things take you. I'll end it there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this conversation reminds me of the red thread. I know we haven't talked about the red thread yet, but it reminds me of red thread because, for me and for you, Chris, we have a curiosity of finding ways to explore because we're talking about the anti-library. We're talking about like, a lot of different things that led to another thing to led to another thing. And what I take away from this is that you never know where the inspiration will come from and when it will strike. And I think that is an important lesson for me to take from this is that a lot of time, if you think that it doesn't come from where you expect it to come from, then it won't.
Right.
But if you keep it open-minded and you, like you said, you would never think, hey, my 85 plus year old grandmother would have a treasure trove of stories that you would never be able to uncover just because you think,
You
hey,
didn't ask.
I know, all about them, right?
Right.
Because you think about it, like, there are stories about me that you didn't know,
Yep.
and there's stories that about you that I didn't know, right? A story about your grandma, for example, I didn't know, and And these are the interests of the human mind. It's about human connections. And as long as you live that human connection, this is what we're interested in. And a lot of times, we take our knowledge for granted. For example, like for your grandma say, hey, I think what I know isn't valuable to somebody.
Yeah.
And vice versa, that, you say, hey, my grandma, right? She's my grandma. I should know everything about them. But you don't until you talk. So to me, this exploration, because now there's interesting stories that you have shared over the course of our journey that I would not have known and I would not have learned from them. And certainly, I hope there's certain stories about me that you would never hear me talk about. And I told you before, I won't go out there and tell you, hey, this is what I think, this is what I mean. And I'm not going to tell you about YOML. I'm not going to tell you about Beaver Must Dam unless you want to know, because there's no point in me telling you if you're not ready to receive the information that I'm going to tell you.
And can't peel back that onion, like, unless somebody's willing to get all the way down to the core, because it's like, okay, like, I'm not, I mean, I
say, hey, Beaver Must Dam, and then the guy say, okay, great. And then, let me tell you about how Beaver Must Dam and blah, blah. I say, no, that guy's going to run away. So there are certain thread you have to pull, right? That's what I'm saying. So if you pull a thread and it's interesting, you keep pulling. Like you say, hey, you talk to your grandma and you talk about the Grandma Diaries, and then the Grandma Diaries, you found out about this Audie Murphy guy, right? We would have never known who this guy is. And then from his book, you would learn about some other thing. So you got to follow that thread. And to me, this is the thread of life. This is collecting
stories,
human experience.
Right.
You are a collector. And once you become 85, 90 yourself, you will have a treasure trove of memories and of stories and experience that it becomes valuable to somebody. Right. And I think this is the takeaway that I'm trying to bring out. Your knowledge, my knowledge, anyone's knowledge, it is valuable to somebody. Right? It takes you 20 years to accumulate that knowledge. I can pick up all the words of the English language I can use correctly, but doesn't mean I become a great storyteller. Doesn't mean I become a great author, a best-selling author. That's what I'm talking about. The art in having these pieces of experiences that creates this mastery that you can take it and present to the world.
Anybody can understand it.
Exactly. For you to pen it down, for you to put them together in an orchestrated manner, in the pattern of the word, right? Like I said, I can probably know more or less the whole dictionary. I can go study all the dictionary. That doesn't make me a good writer.
Right.
Because, I mean, there are how many combinations of words you put together?
Remember, it was literally how many words, how many words can you put together in the English language? And the answer was, you will never run out of words to say. Like, if you put together a combination for the rest of your life, and if you said as many words as you could say every single day, all day long, you would still
run out. But for me and you, be unreachable. The human experience is what somebody have accumulated for so long, but not only accumulating these things, but to put into a pattern. Like, you can hear a piece of note, a musical note, whatever the note is. They're probably like only a limited number of notes. But the kind of music that comes out from these kind of notes are massive, and we, as human beings, hasn't been able to completely experience all the combinations of other notes. And there's certain music that you like and certain music you don't like. Is it because there are certain notes and like the tone and whatever, it creates a different wave, and all that creates a human experience. And that's valuable to anyone. So we, as a explorer of life, as a community member, we are explorer of life. We need to be an open mind and see the omen and just follow the red thread.
Agreed. And I think one of the things that was most striking about this whole experience is I think people think that their life is boring. I think that they think that they don't, like, why do you want to learn about my life?
Everybody thinks that, and I keep reminding you, Chris, like, what you know, right? It's not what everybody knows. Right. So you can't assume that, hey, that's just basic information, that's common knowledge. No, it is not common knowledge, right?
It's your knowledge. It's what you've acquired and your lived experience.
I mean, go house buy, do a drip campaign. I have no clue what you mean. If I tell you people must damn, who knows what I'm talking about, right?
But the button, if I put the button on the website, will it link? Can I link the button?
No, it's a widget.
I just want a button on my website. Can I do that? Like, is that? No, I'll ask it again. I don't know if I'm saying this like, I mean, to your point of like, people think that, you and I listening to that conversation, I don't think I'm a technical person, right? But I'm even over there going, oh
But
my
do
God,
you, but
it's
your exposure to
right,
that
right,
particular jargon, that particular concept,
right.
you have been exposed to that for years. These guys just for first time hearing about it. So doesn't make any sense that hey, the button and the link, right? Are they any different? If I ask you, hey Chris, what's the difference between coconut milk and coconut cream?
I don't know, actually. What does make it cream? Like it
Right? What's the difference between milk and what's the difference between cheese?
bacteria.
Something is different.
Hey, go ahead. Yeah.
But I'm just saying is when a person who has been exposed and has been in the trenches of these concepts is a common thing for them. This is not, everybody should know.
Rennet. Rennet. Rennet.
Right,
Rennet
right. But the thing is, because we know it on a daily basis, we take for granted and we assume that everybody knows it as well. But the point is, people don't. If I say, hey, I can go to a certain place, right? Depending on how popular something is, right? If I say, hey, this particular cup is going to cost you $100, right? Thing is, the people who doesn't know about how much something costs, they either going to say, well, that's too much or that's too little, depending on how they value something. So
right.
it's only their perspective of what they know determines the value of something. Maybe, hey, because you go and say, hey, people have like different hobbies, right? They collect plants, they collect rare art, whatever. Like you say,
Right.
hey, Van Gogh will cost you $5 million or whatever. Say, what makes it $5 million? Knows it costs that much. For us, say, hey, why would I pay $5
I don't
million
know. It's
dollars
just
for
some
this?
canvas. I don't know. I mean, like
Exactly. So,
somebody just did some brushstrokes on a canvas. Like, gives a shit. Like, I'm not.
right.
I'd pay $99 for that. Like, and they're like, no. That often blows me away with like construction costs. Because I don't know shit about construction, right? So somebody comes in, like when we just finished the basement, and they're like, oh, well, this is gonna be, I'd say about 3 weeks and $17,000. I'm like, $17,000. I mean, I was like,
expecting three.
you're just slapping up some walls, man, like and moving some fucking lights and shit. Like, what is so hard about that? Like, like I'm like, and that should be $2,500, and they're like, you're fucking nuts. The build out with pickleball stuff, right? Like just getting the zoning changed. The guy that does like the legal zoning changing, he's not a lawyer, but he's somebody that knows like the ins and outs of all the zoning codes and whatever and files all this paperwork and he does it. And I was like, so how much do you charge to do that? And he goes, $5,000. And I was like, $5,000 to file fucking paperwork? I was like, how hard is this? And he was like, you can try it yourself, but it'll take you months. Like, I was like, all right, I guess that's fair. You get paid $5,000 to file some fucking paper? And he's like, well, yeah, you got to do the right order, the right place, know who to talk to, know who to not, push it through to the front of the line and when to get it in, when to not get it in to be able to make sure that you get it done faster. It's 25 years of experience of him doing this like all the time that he knows, yeah, it's worth $5,000, I guess. And I paid him $5,000 to do that.
Right, because it's going to cost you $25,000 for you to do it by yourself because you're going to and more time because you can get it wrong.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, for example, if I have some kind of sickness, right, some kind of disease, right, and somebody because of their knowledge, well, their background or their combinations of experiences, they say, hey, your frozen shoulder, true, you should use this balm thingy I'm using.
Right.
How much is that worth to me? How much is that worth to me?
Yeah. I mean, if it fixed stuff, a lot.
Exactly, because that is a godsend. Okay.
Right.
You see, if you have something that is devastating, let's say, I guarantee you, Steve Jobs is a billionaire, right? When he has pancreatic cancer, if somebody was able to give him the solution to his problem, he would be willing to give you his entire fortune, not half, not 90%, entire fortune, right? That is the power of knowledge that people don't think is worth anything. This is the power of experience that people think that life is boring. So life isn't boring. You just have to apply to the right kind of people who wants that kind of information. And same for us, because if you are the searcher of information, you got to keep following a thread. And I don't say, well, my grandma doesn't know because I know them. I've been living with them since my whole life, all my life. Even though you and I have spent like 3 years together, we know a lot about each other. But I'm sure There's probably something that you have yet to uncover,
I'm
right?
sure. I'd be shocked if it wasn't. There's almost no chance that there's not, only because like some of the stuff that you might find interesting is probably boring as hell to me or something like that. Oftentimes, whenever I tell anybody about what we do on this podcast, all the things that we've done over the past, 4 years now or whatever together, I always think that it's going to be boring as hell to explain to people like what you and I are doing. And oftentimes, they're like, holy crap, like you guys have made 45 podcasts. Like, where can I find this stuff? What do you guys talk about? Like, what are you doing? Wait, this is all stuff that you've written on a blog. Why don't you tell this stuff? Why don't you share this with anybody? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you guys are going to care. Why would you care? I mean, like, this isn't relevant to you. And they're like, well, how do you know? Like, I'm going to check it out. And I'm like, okay, fine, check it out. My point being is I think that we often discount, like, I mean, I heard this from my grandmothers all the time, right? When I was interviewing them, I feel like they just naturally discounted themselves as to what they've done in their lives. It was almost like, well, you don't want to know about that. I'm like, yeah, I do. I want to know about that.
To me, though, Chris, you come to me and say, hey, True, what is interesting? I say, I don't know. Right? But the thing is, until you ask something specific, right, then the story comes out and say, well, I remember this, I do this. And then you ask more. You can't just go, hey, what is your best memory, right? What does that mean? I don't know what best memory is.
Right.
What's your best book? Say, I don't know. I like all sorts of books. But the thing is, that's what I'm saying is when we are explorer of life, we gotta figure out how to follow the threads.
Right.
And because we're exposed to it, doesn't mean it's commonplace to a lot of people. And so, like you say, the Grandma Diaries. If you think about, hey, Grandma Diaries, what do Grandma Diaries do? It's his grandma, right? But they are treasure troves of experiences.
I'll never forget that.
Like, amaze you.
It was weird because like whenever we get together in person now, my grandmothers, when I ran out of questions, they were kind of like, when are we going to do the next one? When are we going to and I was like, I don't have any more questions. I don't know. I really don't know what else to ask you anymore. I don't know what else to ask you about your life at this point in time, because I feel like, I spent 18 hours, talking to you guys about your life, and it was, I mean, I learned a lot. I don't know what else there is. I don't know what else to ask you anymore. Right. But
I think the asking it doesn't trigger a lot of your natural instincts, right? Because let's say you ask me something, hey, what's exciting today? I say, well, I don't know. So if you approach the person with that kind of questions, it won't work, because I don't know what to tell you. But if you tell me, hey, I talked to my grandma and she have all this information. She told me about Audie Murphy, right? What do you think? And when I have something to think about, right? And then my train of thought will give you a different perspective. Then you can see the perspective and you follow that thread. Say, hey, this is how you and I were. That's how I was able to tell you about the stories that I would not have told anyone, because it's just not.
When's the right time to talk about Amelia to somebody? I don't know. There is none really. But if you ask me about her, or if you ask me anything about anything with her, and you want to listen, then I'll tell you all day long, right? I mean, like, I want you to ask, right? Like, I think a lot of times we're afraid of somebody asking us about things.
I think it's forced and not natural when somebody is told to reply, right? Like, oh, I haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Texans, right? Well, you think about something, and that will tell you whether or not you have a good day or a bad day. Even talking about something that is completely irrelevant to what it is you're trying to pull the thread from. You're talking about the Texans, you're talking about the Super Bowl, you're talking about the weather, whatever, right? Some non-relevant topic, but that turn of thought has a footprint. That footprint gives clues to how that person is feeling, how that person can relate. Because how we talk to each other, we have to be able to take what we know, take what we experience, and relate. And that kind of gives clue to the other person. The red thread can be pulled, like, hey, this is interesting to me. I want to know more about. I want to know specifically what kind of, whatever it is. Do you like coffee or whatever? It just comes out. But that's the thing, is people are not dying to kind of give you an answer as a computer does, because it has to be able to pull in a way that is not invasive.
And I think you have to know that the receiver that's asking you the question genuinely wants to know. I think that's an incredibly important part of this whole experience with my grandmothers, is they genuinely knew that I was doing this out of love because I just love them and I wanted to learn about their life. And they were like, okay, I mean, if you're willing to give me time and you're really curious about my life, then I will entertain you with digging.
I can barely stand the whole presentation. I have to leave early because
It wasn't
I'm not
interactive. I
receptive.
mean,
I
right,
wasn't
yeah,
receptive to it. But
right.
then you and I talked yesterday for 2 hours about.
More than that. I mean, I think we were actually talking for almost 3 hours yesterday. I think I went to bed at like.
You can sense if a person is not genuine, and if it's not genuine, there's no human feedback. There's no human connection feedback to kind of give you, say, hey, give more information, talk more about it. But if you say, well, yeah, it's nice, huh? Right? How can you can continue?
Right.
It's not possible if you're not. It's about receptivity, right? If you're not receiving the information that's been passed to you, the communication will stop because there's always that feedback. Say, hey, I got it, I got it.
Yep.
Without that, it's very hard. Some people can pretend to be interested, and that person
I don't think you can.
uses a
I don't
lot of
think you can.
willpower to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't do
Yeah,
that.
they can if they're using a lot of willpower, but I think you genuinely know when somebody. So, like, I have a really close friend. He's one of those people that will. I think he thinks just asking questions to people and getting them engaged in a conversation it comes across as him just genuinely caring about because he is a genuinely caring human being. And I think he just genuinely wants people to know that he cares, right, about
Right.
them. So whenever I'm around him, around new people, and he's just asking them the most, it feels like it's like a 21 questions game, with him. But they're like their questions don't make any sense.
You're talking about the weather, and then you start talking about the
What's your favorite
politicians.
football team? I'm like,
There's no thread.
right.
And
And
the
I
thing
don't,
is,
and
you can tell. You can
I
tell,
can
right?
tell.
He is
I'm like, yeah,
interested in
let me
you,
say,
but you can tell he's interested in a conversation. You can tell
right.
because of the kind of feedback you get. Because all of a sudden he talked about something else. I say, well,
He would
wait a
never, he
minute.
would never talk. See, the thing is, he would never talk to me like that because we have a genuine connection that we've
Mhm.
always had for our entire life. And he would never, ever do that because that's not how he actually is. I think that he wants to be that way. And it's like using a lot of willpower. It probably is exhausting for him.
Me.
I would be exhausted trying to invent commonalities with people and getting them to just talk with random strangers. But I think here's the thing. It's a really important note of this whole entire experiment with the Grandma Diaries. You and I genuinely know each other going into this, that each other is receptive to whatever the other person is saying. Like, I want to hear what you say and you want to hear what I'm saying. If multiple people engage in a conversation where that is the foundation element going into it, it's going to be a good conversation no matter what you talk about. It's
Right.
not going to feel forced. It's not going to feel like I'm trying to yank information out of you to keep a dialogue going, right? You just said it last night. We talked for 3 hours about something, and I don't think that it ever felt like either one of us were going like, oh God, what are we going to talk about? If anything, most of the time that we've ever done all these episodes, it's been because once you get into a flow of somebody that that you genuinely is open to wanting to hear what you have to say, and then vice versa, and you feel that's reciprocated, right? Then the flow can just take place.
Seems like whenever you pass on information and it was caught, right? You feel that connections and your burden on that information get lifted. And
Yep.
so you have more energy to bring forth another piece of information. Because if I keep passing but you don't get it, you keep holding it to it. I mean you stack and say, well, right. I'm carrying this burden of information and no one's getting it. It's like it's getting heavy and it exhausts you. It doesn't take long for you to say, well,
Fuck this. So I have another really, really close friend of mine. On the flip side of this other really close friend of mine, he can meet anybody and can somehow create a connection that seems organic. And I don't know how he does it. I've actually always I've known this person since I was 5 years old, but watching him do what he does has always been like a marvel to me. I mean, it's exactly what it is. One of my friends is not a beaver and he's trying to dam all day long with trying to get people to pull stuff out.
And
the other one is awkward. It's just straight awkward.
We don't have to talk. Yeah. If you're not interested, you don't want to force it because I can feel you.
Then the other friend on the other side of the coin is I'm like, man, how do you just somehow become best friends with every fucking person you meet? And I'm like, what is happening? How do you do this? And he's like, I don't know. I doesn't even try.
The thing is, we're talking about, I don't know about the book, The Go-Giver. I mean, you're talking about these type of person, right? So right. The connector, for example, is able to connect with somebody. And the connector, it actually gets better as he does his connector work. Because when he talks to somebody, he finds common grounds he will explore other common ground, and that common ground that he get from this new person, he's able to use that common ground to connect with another person. The more he talks, the better of connecting. I have this friend who does this. I have this friend who does that. That creates an interesting story. But if you don't know this guy, know how he behave, how he act, how do you collect this information? How will you share it to me to make it interesting? How will you share it to the audience to say, hey, there is something to talk about. There is a point that he's trying to make. Versus, hey, yeah, nothing. We're talking about here is a point of interest. If there's no point of interest, if you're not receiving it, then you're not going to be able to bring forth another piece of information, and that information gets like stagnate, and it feels bad. For some reason, our emotion can detect that, and it makes you feel like, oh, this is awful, this is awkward, and I don't want to do that again, and it feels, I don't know what to call it, but it feels like yucky in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect word to say, because it feels unnatural is what it feels.
It
like,
is unnatural.
When you follow genuine curiosity and read threads, it's natural. Like I wasn't trying to be weird with my grandmothers. I would, like, when I sat down with them every week on Sunday, we would do it on Sundays when we did these episodes. The only reason I learned about Audie Murphy, I didn't ask her about, I don't know how we even got on this topic, to be honest with you. And I'm like, okay, what do you want to talk about? I had to figure out a way to get them to answer anything. And then once I could get them talking about anything, then it was like a nice, the red thread, because I was genuinely, that was what I was there for. I wanted to learn about my grandmother's lives, right? Once I could get them to say anything, then I could pull that and the conversation could naturally unfold, because I genuinely cared, like, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think that's my final thought on this whole one, because I think I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it was just a really interesting experiment, and I'm glad that I did this. I almost got yelled at, just a side note. I did get yelled at by them. I started to post these on YouTube, and both of my grandmothers were like, no, I didn't tell you could post this. I said that you could record this for you, and maybe we could figure out if we wanted to share with others. They're like, I don't want my life to be public to everybody. I'm like, why? They were like, no, take it down right now. And I'm like, okay, fine. I got yelled at by my grandmothers about that one. I had to backtrack and be like, no, it's not publicly available. I made it privately available. But anyway, yeah, that's my story about Grandma Diaries and To Hell and Back by Audie Murphy. The book was, just for reference, the book was okay. If you want to picture this guy, by the way, this is Audie Murphy. He was a big time singer, actor,
songwriter. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was like the guy. I don't know who you could compare him to today.
Actor, songwriter.
Probably like The Rock, somebody that, like, he was a football player, he was a wrestler, now he's like an actor, he sings, with like Moana and whatever, and he does, produces stuff. I'll go with like The Rock, where he was, multifaceted person that had an interesting background. This guy was just, I mean, man, he went through some shit for sure. The book To Hell and Back, like the title is true. Insane amount of PTSD for the rest of their life. Go talk to anybody that's ever been in a military conflict about what they've experienced, and you'll probably walk away going like, holy shit.
Yeah, tough times.
Any final thoughts for you for the night?
Well, I would, hopefully that's not going to confuse people. Isn't that, no, it's not in a 365.
395.
So yeah, we went into the future.
Thanks for joining. It was great to be back in the saddle, having a fun conversation and re-energizing. It was energizing for me, at least. So hopefully it was for you. And thanks for joining. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Sounds good. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.